Let us start with the popular notion of the shadow self or the dark side. It is believed that we have a dark side to our nature. We have dark thoughts, dark desires, evil intentions. This is an illusion. There is no shadow self hiding behind a good self, or better nature. There is only self. When it comes to self and notions of self, people generally have it back to front. People generally see themselves as an ego contained within a physical body. This is what people believe themselves to be in reality, that is, the ego and a physical body. Spirit or the soul is something that only some people believe in, it's just part of who they are. But if you ask them about soul or spirit, they will find it hard to explain. For some people, spirit or soul is something which appears after death. So what we're going to do in this video is clear up some of the confusion and misconceptions. As we're dealing with metaphysics here, I want to point out that we're dealing with probabilities. There is no such thing as a metaphysical certainty. I claim no authority. Please do not take my words here and try to turn them into some kind of belief. Just let my words flow through you with an open mind, independent of judgment, and let whatever resonates resonate, so that you can sense and feel any insight. I am not you. I do not have your perspective on life. I do not experience your reality. Just let the words flow and let whatever insight that comes manifest into being. So okay, where do we start? Let's start with spirit. Spirit is who you really are and who you always have been in a metaphysical sense, throughout multiple incarnations. But, and here's the predicament, you are attached to a physical body, which means you are embodied, and therefore animate, and there are multiple layers of reality, consciousness, and the subconscious between what you think is you and spirit. In addition, there are also multiple layers of social conditioning or what you have been taught to believe is you, which has culminated in what we understand to be ego and identity, associated with various social roles and other stuff, your background, upbringing, education, and so on, which has become an elaborate belief system. Spirit manifests in different ways, in different levels, and we can talk of collective spirit, group spirit, and fragments of spirit. When we talk about paranormal events and phenomena, it's often believed that spirit manifests as a ghost, and a ghost is a manifestation of a person. While this might be true, it's also just as probable that a paranormal event is just a fragment of spirit manifesting within the subconscious and trapped in some form of residual energy somewhere, so therefore not a ghost nor a manifestation of a person. It could just as easily be a subconscious memory which gives you a slight distortion of perception of reality at a given moment. Poltergeist phenomena, for example, are often subconscious memories which briefly distort basic reality. A door slams, something drops from a shelf, or something appears to vanish. The poltergeist event is probably not a ghost or a manifestation of someone dead, it can often be triggered through the subconscious of someone living. It could also be a random distortion of basic reality or a fluctuation in energy. It could also be a distortion of your perception of reality. The same could be true if your cat stares at a spot on the wall or your dog barks at something. Even though cats and dogs are extremely sensitive to energies and have strong extrasensory abilities, it could be so many things. So we come to the soul or jivatman. This is essentially spirit associated with one particular being or entity. The difference between soul or jivatman is a matter of cosmology. If you were raised to believe a Western cosmology, based on a religious belief, such as Christianity, Judaism, or even Islam, you will think of a soul. If however you were raised with an Eastern cosmology such as Hinduism or Jainism, or a derivative belief, you will be familiar with the jivatman. I personally prefer the jivatman, because it is somewhat more precise. It's probably better here to get into the etymology to understand why. Jivatman is a Sanskrit word with two bases. You have the base word jiv. Jiv essentially means breath or spark of life. That what animates something so it is living. Then you have Atman, which means self. Atman means self, and Atman means not self. So you have jivatman, which means an animated self, which is essentially what the soul is. The jivatman is a supernatural entity which manifests through someone's movements, body language, the tone, timbre, and style of their voice, and so on. It's through this we recognize each other as individuals and know that, for example, Tom is Tom and not Harry or Steve. You can say the exact same thing about the soul. The ego or identity is something different, simply because the ego or identity is based on thought and belief. Hopefully, this will give you a better insight into what spirit, soul, and jivatman refer to. So next we move on to the shadow. The dark side. If you explore metaphysics, whether it be the occult, spirituality, or some form of existentialism, you will come across a belief that, at some point in your life, you will need to face up to and overcome your dark side. This is where you need to be careful. I'm going to dip into the Kabbalah or Kabbalistic thinking here. Please keep in mind that generally starting out into metaphysics, be it spirituality or existentialism, or even if you start to dig deeper into those religious beliefs, what seems obvious or even logical is usually misleading. Duality or dualism is the overall pattern of thought which arises out of social conditioning and the conditioned mind. What I'm referring to here is the duality of social thinking, which is based on morality and moral reasoning. Examples of this dual thinking are such things as light and dark, good and bad, right and wrong, good and evil, and other polarities. Moral reasoning is okay if you're young, a child, maybe a teenager, but as you mature and become an adult, you will learn the issue with morality and moral reasoning. Moral reasoning is always relative, and is therefore self-defeating. What you call is good is only your opinion. What you call evil is just your opinion. Now, I'm not suggesting that evil is an illusion. In most cases, evil is perpetrated when the mind becomes corrupted and good or right becomes an illusion. All the worst examples of humanity, throughout human history, would swear blind that they were acting out of good intentions. This is why we say that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You see, life comes with a series of paradoxes, because existence itself comes with a series of paradoxes. For example, there's a paradox of power. There's also the singularity and plurality of self and being. So we have to look into what causes the paradox. There's a certain symmetry of existence. It goes something like this. Whatever comes into being, its exact opposite also comes into existence. This is also what is known in Eastern cosmology as dependent arising, or mutual arising. As this arises, that becomes. This means that the shadow exists because being exists. If there was no being, there would be no shadow. You cannot have a shadow without a being, and you cannot have being without a shadow. In addition to the symmetry of existence and the various paradoxes of life, you also have roots and culture. Just like a tree. Only you can move around, but you're still rooted to the dry surfaces of this planet, no different from a tree. You have a birthplace, an upbringing, a past, and a background rooted in a specific pattern of social and cultural beliefs. It's out of these roots and culture you create your ego and identity. But your ego and identity is centered on your physical form, but the real you, the layer of being which is really you, has no physical form, but is centered in your conscious awareness behind the physical form. It exists in the mind, which is space. All physical existence arises out of consciousness, and out of existence you get being. You are the non-physical center behind your physical form, or in other words, a hungry ghost messing about with a physical body or physical form. The real you is your awareness, not your physical body. The thing to understand here is that non-existence connects existence, and energy binds physical form. This might go against everything you've been taught to believe about the nature of existence. Your physical body and brain are just vessels for your awareness and spirit through which both manifest. Generally, we are conditioned to believe that physical form is what is real, and space is emptiness, nothing, and insignificant. In many cases, the reverse is true. You will notice that, relative to energy, inanimate objects are generally harder than animate forms. From this we get the natural order, which is reality out of which existence unfolds, and out of existence being unfolds. This is where we get the principle of fields and dimensions. The metaphysical is what exists in the field, and the physical determines the dimensions. Therefore, existence always goes hand in hand with non-existence. Energy is always relative to consciousness and space. You're conditioned to believe that there's a hard boundary between your physical body and everything else. From this we get the illusion or notion of separateness. Only there is no separateness anywhere. There is only fields and dimensions. What's in the field is determined by the dimensions. The dimensions are defined by what is in the field. The space is the vehicle for the energy, because within the space is the consciousness, one and the same, and what animates the physical is the energy. This is where we get into the paranormal, that what is beyond what we call normal. Let's take the example of a bed. Your bed. You could say it's just a bed. Okay. Let's do a simple experiment. Say you live with other people in a house. If you think a bed is just a bed, then just go and lie on someone else's bed, just for a few minutes. Tell me how you feel. You should notice a feeling of discomfort, of strangeness, of something foreign. The people who claim that they find it difficult to sleep in a strange bed or struggle to sleep in a hospital bed are relating a paranormal experience. It's a very low-level paranormal experience, but it is still a paranormal experience. What I'm pointing out here is that you animate inanimate objects. All around you is energy, relationship energy, something known as residual energy. Please remember here that touch is our primary sense, the basis of all senses, because all senses are based on sentience, on feeling, on vibrations, or if you prefer vibes, and contact. Sight is contact with light energy. Hearing is touching sound energy and noise. Taste is touching the ingredients of your food. Meat is just dead biological matter, but prepare it, cook it, and eat it, and what you taste becomes the experience. You get a different sensation from vegetables as you do from fruit, from meat, from grain. Similarly, when you go to sleep in your own bed, you get a different experience from when you sleep in another bed. You might get a different dream as well. Now think about all the inanimate objects you touch and use in your life. Think about your shoes, your clothes, your toothbrush, your smartphone, your car. Through your habitual touching, holding, and using, you are animating these items. What I'm talking about here is basic psychometry, which is a step beyond sense. Psychometry is the ability to tell the history and additional information from an inanimate object just from holding it or touching it. If you are sensitive, you will be able to feel if someone has touched your smartphone, or if someone has laid down in your bed. Now, if you can get a sensation and an experience from eating fruit or say a steak, then surely you can see that you can also get a sensation and experience through your physical body. What I want to point out here is that, if you really were your physical body, then no sense, no sensation, and no experience would be possible. But to go through those experiences, your body has to be animate, or in other words, you have to be conscious and consciously aware. The real you is this awareness, and in being this awareness, it's not possible for you to have any kind of shadow. For sure you can believe you have a shadow, but just because you believe something exists does not necessarily mean that it exists in actual reality. This is how you can connect different sensations, feelings, thoughts, emotions, and energies from your body, your brain, your mind, and your environment. There's a mystical principle here. Non-existence is what connects existence, and it's only physical dimensions which define what's in the field, but does not determine the contents the field. There is no good you and bad you. There is no light and dark side, because that's a remnant of an ancient religious belief known as Gnosticism, which is all about seeking light, gathering the light, protecting the light. Your shadow is just your illusion, just like your dark side. The reality is impermanence of physicality and energy and the spontaneity and randomness of consciousness which manifests as a happening. The clouds in the sky are a happening. The birds singing is a happening, the traffic in the street is a happening, people walking down the street is a happening. You are a happening. Similarly, moods, emotions, feelings, and thoughts arise and fade because they're happenings too. You can only experience such things as moods, emotions, and feelings or thoughts because you are the awareness behind the physical you. You're the ghost, the spirit, and not your physical body. You're just attached to your physical body. If you hit a bell with a hammer, it's not the metal of the bell which rings, it's the field around the bell which rings. It's the interface, which in human terms is the mind. Everything, all your thoughts, all your perceptions, all your moods, feelings, and emotions flow through the mind. All your nerves and senses feed the mind through the brain. So we come back to the paranormal, which arises out of the subconscious. This is a vast mysterious field or area because it is beyond the normal, which means the paranormal. I'm going to give you a metaphor here. Imagine the plumbing system of a house. You have the taps, which is your conscious mind. The taps lead back to your boiler, which is your conscious awareness. But beyond the boiler is a water tank coming from the mains, which is your subconscious. Your whole past, from this incarnation or life cycle, and all previous life cycles, lie in your subconscious. Keep in mind here water is a metaphor for spirit. What I'm pointing out here is that a paranormal experience can be anything. What you think is a ghost or a poltergeist can be anything. It could be a shift in a field or a dimension. It could be an aspect of consciousness trapped in an energy field. It could be the remains of a dream. It could be a strong emotion coming from you distorting either your perception. It could actually be an actual ghost or spiritual manifestation. So okay, let's say it's a ghost. So you assume it's a ghost of someone else. But what if it isn't? What if it's a spiritual manifestation of you from either the past or the future? How can you tell the difference? I'm not trying to debunk the paranormal with science or scientific theories here. I'm just pointing out that a lot of what is paranormal is created by thought which can distort perception. Take for example the past or the future. These are aspects of time. Time only exists on certain levels of reality, usually connected with physical existence. Time does not exist in the metaphysical or quantum fields of reality. Then you have people who claim to be skeptic and who claim that ghosts are not real. Okay. So, please tell me this, how come you know so much about reality to be able to determine what is real and what isn't? Let's go into this and acquaint ourselves with the nature of reality. There is no such thing as objective reality. There is only what is known as ultimate reality. But none of us can perceive ultimate reality. It's not possible. We humans have the neural network and perception of a primate, an ape. It's nowhere near enough to understand the reality of the universe, or even this planet. What we call reality is a manifestation of reality. Ultimate reality can throw up an infinite number of manifestations of reality. Out of reality manifests existence, and out of existence manifests being. This is the basic unfolding pattern of reality, existence, and being. The paranormal will always be a mystery or the edge of mystery. Life is far more mysterious than we like to believe it is. Even your life contains far more mystery than perhaps you are comfortable with. You contain mystery, and other people are far more mysterious than you think they are. I will leave you with that thought.